This call is now being recorded.
Global Link. Usted tiene una llamada prepagada de... Para aceptar esta llamada, diga o oprima ahora el 5. Gracias por utilizar Global Link.
Gran aplauso a esta gran estrella Selena que hoy día nos acompaña.
Hello.
I want to go ahead and welcome you and thank you guys for coming back for part 2. And I want to go ahead and welcome ignacho.medina, also known as Nacho. And last time that we met up with him, we were obviously in a different location. We were at the Rose Gardens, off of right next to USC, and here we're at a different location. Could you tell me what the significance of this location is, and why we're here?
Thank you for being open to coming to this particular spot, and I'm glad to be back. So I grew up about a block and a half from here, and these railroad tracks actually lead straight to a park where I used to play basketball, and I believe was like the last parts of my innocence, you know, before I discovered like the dark side of the street, so to speak, and my friends changed and my environment changed after that. But I remember when this was not maybe had that much color in it, it was a little bit more innocent as well. And I would walk down these tracks with my basketball or with my friends. I would climb the trains, and it was like a ritual. I think this was the last of my innocent rituals that I had with my friends. You know, that I like to say as a young kid, when you would go buy something at the store, at the liquor store, and you go buy some chips and a soda pop, and you would walk 4 or 5 blocks, right, just to hop on a train or on a wall and just open it up with your friends and start eating them, and you talk about anything. But it was such a good time, and this is what this reminds me of. Even though it might look like this now, but this still takes me right back to that. And I thank you for being here, and all of you guys as well.
Let me ask you, what's a happy memory that you have here that you could recollect right now? Like walking or hanging out with your friends?
No, it's a good. It's happy, even though being like traviesos, you know, doing things maybe you're not supposed to do, like unhooking a train, right? And like, because there's a little slope, right, that goes up. Yeah. So there'll be trains like down the way, and we'll unhook the last train, and like 4 or 5 of our friends will start fucking pushing it down. You know, it wouldn't go very far, but we'll fucking push it. And then when it starts moving a little bit faster, we'll turn it off. Man, that was like so fun. It was just getting inside of school buses, jumping over this fence, and just going inside school buses at nighttime, you know, and again, just drinking a soda. It wasn't even beer, it wasn't even weed, it wasn't nothing bad. And it was just exploring like our area. And I believe that was the most fun that I've ever had. And I remember that it actually kept me going for a long time, remembering this spot, because I felt so good about it. Yeah, it's a lot of memories.
So last time we talked, we kind of talked about the Rose Garden and what it meant to you. It was a nice, quiet place where you could sit down and write and gather your thoughts. On part 2 here, I want to go back to earlier life, like when you were younger. I want to know what was your earliest childhood memory? What do you remember as a kid? Either whether it's happy, sad. What's your earliest childhood memory?
I believe Easter. For some reason it was Easter, because my birthday is like March 26th, so it was always like around Easter. And the earliest things I remember was that, like Easter baskets, you know, with my dad, going in the backyard, like hiding eggs, you know, having like a big meal that day, people coming over, getting to see my cousins. That to me was like my earlier childhood memory. And yeah, that, and then going to Mexico with my dad, with my mom, being with my grandparents, feeling that kind of freedom, that other kind of freedom. This is a good question, because I thought about that a lot, that it was actually the happier times for my family too. You know, I think that when I do remember those early childhood memories, when you're naive and like you don't know if your mom or dad or someone's struggling through something, right? You're just a kid. And they gave the best of themselves to me at that time. And I think like all those memories all together before I lost my father were all good, because I was so naive and I felt protected. I had my Superman, so I was good. And I can say Easter, Mexico, and just having my family, like a complete family.
And just a moment ago, you mentioned that you lost your father. Would you mind sharing some of the details of how you lost your father?
Yeah, so, man, the last time I see my dad was pretty much around the block from here. I was 9 years old, and my dad was struggling with a heroin addiction, and he was absent. He started to turn absent towards probably about when I was 7, 8 years old, like more, and he would disappear for a week or two, and we would have to go find them. And I remember like the way my dad's breath smelled using heroin, that smell, because later on in life when I started using heroin too, I reminisced of that. I was like, oh man, like, even though, and this is crazy, that it's the very same thing that took my dad, that it was the very same thing that I was playing with. But when I lost my dad at the age of 9, when he succumbed to his addiction, I felt, I mean, that I wasn't good enough. I really did feel that he left me. I didn't understand about addiction at the time, but I really felt that he preferred drugs over me. And I felt that I wasn't good enough to love. So like, I know now that from that moment on, I started to shut myself off to love. And I had to be headstrong to not hurt. And that obviously took me on, some pretty dark paths, but, I was very disconnected because I felt like I wasn't good enough for anything. And if I wasn't good enough for my dad, then I had this thing in my head where I was like, fuck everybody. And I literally lived that life till I was like 35 years old. And that losing my father was like the biggest thing for me, like the biggest loss that I've ever had in my life. And I'm still blessed to have my mom and my siblings, but that changed my life, man. And it happened here. It happened pretty much from walking on these railroad tracks and feeling light and lively, to walking on these railroad tracks and feeling depressed and feeling down on myself, to walking on these tracks and being high and being drunk, to eventually going to prison, leaving these tracks behind, and going to prison and taking the memory with me. And all that came from my father, from losing my father.
And a moment ago, you just mentioned that at 35, you made a change. Why did it take you so long to make this change?
Yeah, that's a better question. It took me that long because there's no excuse. I just had not met the people. I wasn't exposed to the people that would inspire me. When I was in the SHU, I remember there would be people that would come to like your door in the SHU, and they would come like with their spit guard and their vest, and they would talk about church, or they would talk about, mostly everybody would talk about God. And I was like, I didn't believe in God. I would pray, but it wasn't with faith. And they would come to the door, but I was never like, I wasn't open to it. I was like, whatever, shoot you can leave your Bible all you want. You can talk to me, you can give me all the booklets in the world. I wasn't receptive to it until I finally went to a yard, still being a level 4 at the time. And there was this one guy, man, that stood up one day in this gym, and his name's Robert Garcia. And he went up there and he just started talking about that he was a lifer and that he spent so many years. He spent 23 years. If I recall correctly. And at that time, I had been in prison maybe 16 years at that time. Little did I know that I would end up spending 23 years myself. And I remember like hearing him talk about, about certain family members that had drug addictions. And he spoke about it like with this fucking strength, bro. That I was like sitting there like looking at him. I was like, man, this fool's like, he's saying everything that I would wish I had the fucking courage to say. But I couldn't say it. I just know I walked up to him. I was like, hey, man, you're Bobby, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, hey, what's up? I said, I'm going to do what you do. I said, I'm going to come back to prisons and I'm going to talk to people. And he's like, oh, yeah, Wendy, how much time do you got? Like, well, I got life. And he goes, nah, well, you'll be all right. Like, I had life. And he goes, and he gave me like an address to write to this office. And I wrote there. And I was 35. And I remember he wrote me back. And he never stopped writing me. And he inspired me. Like, he inspired me to believe that not one choice determines like the significance of my life. That it's just a chapter. And this guy has like a family, and he has 2 beautiful daughters, and he has an amazing wife, and he's like an inspiration to like so many of us. And when I met him, it changed the trajectory of how I just saw things. I still wasn't really doing everything I had to do, because I was still kind of get high, I would still drink a little bit, but that was the beginning of me believing that there was not only a way out, but there was a way that I could make it work out here. Because I think a lot of us want to get out, but then you look at the beast and you're like, shit, right? And when you look at it that way, you kind of got to be naive. You kind of got to be like, you know what, I can't fuck with that right now, so I'm not even tripping on that right now. Let me just do this. And he taught me that shit. And at 35, man, I started the journey to get here, to come back to this spot. And this is a dream come true, really.
I could imagine. So I want to take you back to earlier life. Like your childhood, like when you were, I don't know, like maybe 12, 13, the type of things that you were doing. Were you going to school, hanging out with your friends? What kind of activities were you involved in at that age?
At 12, I had been in junior high 2 years. Maybe I'd been in 6 junior highs by then. At 13, I believe I couldn't even go to, I had no more junior highs to go to. So they put me in continuation school because I would fight. I was so combative against everybody. Anybody with authority, a teacher that tells me something, I was like, fuck you. You know, I wasn't violent because I never went to jail as a juvenile, even though maybe I should have quite a few times. But I was one of those kids that a teacher told me some shit in class, I'll be like, fuck you. Like, you ain't nobody. You know, again, I was like, well, you're not my dad. And I would walk out of class and I would jump the fence. And they could follow me all the way to the fence. And like, I knew they couldn't grab me because it wasn't the black and white. So I would jump the fence and just leave. And then they would call my mom. And when I would get home, you know, it didn't matter if she hit me. At like 13 years old, my mom wouldn't hit me no more because I was so big. And my mom's a shorter woman. She's like 5'5". She wouldn't even hit me no more. It was like, now it was like, okay, we're just going to go get the papers from this school. And then we're going to take you to that school. And she really didn't know what to do with me at the age of 12 and 13. I was already beginning to see an easier way for me not to feel what I was feeling, but I could still do things that I guess meant something to me, if that makes much sense at that age.
Yeah. So prior to your father passing away, did you have any type of problems with any type of authorities or somebody in authority position, not listening to them or taking orders prior to your dad passing away?
No. I mean, I think I remember, and this is because of conversations with my mom and like aunts and stuff, that yeah, I believe I started to like act out, like doing like, you know, like acting out as a kid, maybe because I didn't want to get something, but that was because my dad started to be absent. So I do know that like there was this one day when I got out of school and I didn't see my mom, and just by myself I went towards the fireworks stand, and it was like maybe 6 months or so before my dad passing away. And now as I reflected back into like my life, I realized that I was being defiant because I not only wanted to like find my way, but in a way I wanted to see like if I could find something, because I was already lacking something in my house and the problems had started already. Even though I believe my mom and my dad did a pretty good job in like keeping their stuff away from me, because I never heard them fighting or like my dad hitting my mom. That never happened, but he was still not there. And me starting to wander off was me wanting to find something because I didn't have it. And I believe it was still in a very innocent way, but that was like the only things that I dared to do before my dad passed away.
So a moment ago, you just mentioned that you were lacking something. Were you able to find what you were lacking on the streets or somewhere else? And if you did find it, what was it?
Man, just my own value. Understanding that the things that my parents did or didn't do or didn't know to do, that it wasn't on me. That, even though as a, selling drugs or running around or carrying a gun, you would never dare to say that. It was, I didn't feel good enough. And if I didn't feel good enough, I had to do things to like up my value and to make me feel good about myself. And I believe when I found how to forgive myself for putting myself in prison, and then forgiving my father, in a way, I didn't have to forgive my father. So my father is like what I say to my dad when I go to the cemetery, and I try to go almost every week, is this is like my thing. I rarely even send pictures to my mom that I'm there. But it was like my dad, it was like, I actually say to my dad, like, I didn't have to forgive you. Actually, I tell my dad, sorry that I didn't understand what was going on, but nobody told me. Like, I swear, like, I stand in the cemetery and I tell my dad, like, damn, Dad, like, I'm sorry, like, I was mad at you, but nobody told me what the fuck was going on. Right? Because I understand so clearly now that the addiction is a disease. And he had his own set of shit going on. And it had nothing to do with me. But I know he loved me. Because I know many drug addicts that you show them a picture of their kids and they'll break it down. They might not stop using, but you show them a picture of their kids and I bet you're going to be like, damn. You know what I mean? And I've seen that. And that actually helped me heal, with seeing other heroin addicts, cellmates of mine, that they talk about their children and I could hear the love. I could feel the love. And that shit was like, what the fuck? I was like, damn, that means my dad loved me. And I started to get all these messages, and that started to soften my heart, that I spoke about last time. And I was like, fuck, I have no reason to be mad at my dad. Like, my dad was just going through something, and it wasn't his fault. You know what? Maybe I was just looking for the answers. I didn't get them, and I was mad, and I took it out on everybody else. And you know what? Now that I'm back with my family after 20-something years, and I see my family, they think the same way. Most of them do. And they still don't have the answers. But I'm not mad at them no more. Now I just understand it. And that's what I learned. That is not on me or what they got going on. What's on me is me understanding why I'm here and where I'm going. And that's what I realized. That I started to realize at 35. And now that I'm 44, like, I can say I understand myself a little better. Still learning. But yeah, that's. I hope that's the answer to that question.
And previously you had mentioned that you were in continuations and you were getting moved from school to school. Ultimately, what ended up happening with your school situation?
At the age, I think I was like 15. I didn't make it to 16. I dropped out. I was going to a school, I don't know if it was Fremont or something in South Central. And I live in Southgate. So come on. Like, this shit is fucking a walk in the park. Like, over there is like a whole other show, right? And I look like a fucking overgrown white boy. I know I didn't fit in because in my heart I didn't fit in. So, I was doing what I was doing, selling a little bit of weed or whatever the hell I did, go to ditching parties, ditched and everything. Finally, the last time I got kicked out of a high school, my mom sent me to Mexico. And when I went to Mexico, I was over there about almost a year, and when I got back, I just never went back to school. Supposedly I was gonna get a job, and I just kept on doing stuff. I used to go steal at the malls. That's where it started. I used to go steal jeans at the malls, and I used to sell them to these other people, and I would make like $400 or $500 a day at like 15, 16 years old, like 16. And that lasted for a few months, and then I started selling drugs. And then once I started selling drugs, I started going to clubs, and that was my school. And again, I got locked up with days shy of my 19th birthday. So, man, I got cut off like pretty quick. But I used to think I was a shit, but that was back in the day. But that was that.
And let me ask you a comparison between life here in the U.S. and Mexico. How was the life out there in Mexico for you as a kid?
It was heartwarming. And it was heartwarming because even those memories, it's like this. I believe as I matured, even though I matured in prison, and I realized where my family came from, and then you really understand like what life is about, like why they end up here, right? And I say end up here because, trust me, they would have loved to stay there. Because when you go there, you feel the love, but you also know the reality of what's going on. And even though as a child, I didn't know of work, obviously, right? I didn't know what $1 meant. I didn't know that, or a peso meant. But it was heartwarming because I got just the love, not the responsibility of it. So my fondest memories are in Mexico because I was just being Nachito. You know, being what my family calls me, the little guy, the junior, the Nachito. And I loved it. And so I can't wait to go back now. Now that I have to pay for something.
What part of Mexico is your family from?
Oh, from Jalisco.
Jalisco,
yeah,
okay.
From Jalisco. Yeah. My mom's from TJ and my dad's from Jalisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Jalisco the one that has really nice beaches, las playas?
Man, they have Puerto Vallarta, yeah.
Vallarta, okay.
Yeah, but all the beaches are nice. I'm biased. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, bro, it's a journey.
So you come back? Were you like a little bit under 17 or 18?
Yeah, like 16 when I got back. 16. Yeah, probably at 15 I got sent. Came back at 16, and then just started running amok after that. Then also I seen the world a lot easier too. You know, so it's like like I said, it's on me. I made those choices, but I was definitely, I don't know. I can't. I'm always careful on that part because I never want to water down my responsibility of what I did. Even though I was a teenager, but I still made these choices. And the conclusion was somebody losing their life. So I could never like say, oh man, well they didn't tell me or they didn't take me. Because at the end of the day, it culminated in what it culminated. And I take responsibility for it. I'm not going to water it down. So, yeah, I mean, not diverting from the question. But.
So how did you get to the point, of taking somebody's life? Like, what events transpired that would ultimately lead to somebody losing their life or you taking somebody's life?
I mean, there's a lot of ways of getting. For me, I can say I could have took anybody's life that night. I think I was at the point in my drug usage and my drug activities and the people that were surrounding me and the place I was in my life, whatever issues I had that surrounded me at 18 years old, that I had the gun to use it. I'm not saying I would run around and shoot people. I didn't do that. But I definitely had the gun, and I already had the will and the courage in a way of shooting it. And that night was just and then the sirens are going off at the same time. No, not right now. I believe that night, like I just lost one of my friends that passed away. I had gotten in a fight like with a couple of my closer friends. So like my closest friends that would have been there that night, like weren't there. I thought it was like the end of the world because I had thought I had built everything like with these guys. And then this guy just rolled up to the back of the driveway. This guy, he was drunk. Again, I'll say all this for the set the scene. And he was asking this one guy for money. I didn't know how much money. And when I tell you how much money it was, then that's another part of of why it was hard for me to like understand like what the fuck, from a prison cell. So he was charging this dude this money. He was in his face and it looked like he wanted to fight with them. And I just got back from Big Bear with my friends, with some other friends, and I had a gun in my pocket. And me being me, I'm like, fuck this dude. Like, who is this motherfucker? Like, he's in my mom's house. Because he was all the way in the back of my mom's driveway in the apartment building. And one of my friends like, oh, let me go see what's up. I'm going to go tell him to leave. I guess that when he went to tell him, and I say I guess because I don't know, he went to tell him something, and the guy like looked at me. So the guy fucking puts his beer down on the hood of a car, and he starts going towards the garage I'm in. So it's like 5 garages. He's like in the first garage to the left. I'm over here to the right. And he just starts walking towards me. And he just says that if he leaves without his money, that he's gonna do this or that, whatever it is that he said. And again, me in my mind, I'm like, well, he's a threat. I'm already on edge. Like, I'm already looking for people, or people are looking for me. His car's in the driveway. There's another guy in the passenger seat, and he's like doing this. And I'm like looking. My friend's even telling me, like, Nacho, kick back. Because he knows I have a gun. This guy is like belligerent. He's drunk, but I know he didn't know I had a gun. I know he didn't know me like that. So he himself didn't know what he was getting himself into. Just as me, I didn't understand that this guy wasn't really a threat. He was just a neighbor from across the street that this guy that was the mechanico that was fixing this van owed him $20, dog. $20. And I tell him, hey, let's go take a walk. And he goes, fuck it, let's go. And he's right here on my right, I'm to my left, and we start walking. We maybe walk about 15 feet. Seriously, as much as I've meditated to remember what he told me, but he was telling me something. But you know what? In my mind, James, I already knew I was going to shoot him. I already knew that this fool came to look for trouble. And I already had my hand on the gun in my pocket. And we walked these 15 feet, and he did go for his waist. He picked up his waist. Maybe he did it to put his pants up to swing at me. I don't know. But the guy didn't have a gun, and he didn't have a knife. And when he did that, I pulled out the gun and I shot him 7 times. Like from here, right here. And I remember I turned away and I was shooting him because I thought he had a gun. And I forgot this part. I was high on coke. It's not an excuse. I'd been up a couple of days. I was drinking. I was doing a lot of coke. And when I turned around, this guy was like against the wall, like kind of hugging the wall. And he's like gasping for air. And then he kind of like scored the wall. He's like holding it. And he just like fell, bro, like hard, like on the ground. Like you could hear like his face like hit the ground. And then he kind of like crawls a little bit, about 3 or 4 feet, and then he stops moving. And when he stopped moving, I heard somebody say like, Nacho, like, ¿qué pasó? And I looked, and I was like, nada, like nothing. And I looked at my gun, and my gun was like out of bullets. And then my friend ran to me, the guy of the money, the guy that he owed the money to. And he goes, vámonos, let's go. So right here around the block, I ran on the other side of the railroad tracks. That's on the other street, like about, a couple lights down. I ran and I hid by the railroad tracks, and I called my cousin. Those old Motorola phones, at that time. And I'm like, hey, wait, I shot somebody, the driveway of my mom's house. He's like, what the fuck? And I go, where you at? So he came to pick me up, and he took me to this house, and I ended up getting arrested. And it took me a long time to stop saying that it was a guy that went to my house, that threatened me, that said he had a gun. There was all these lies that were attached to that crime because so many people didn't like him, but so many people liked me. And that was such bullshit because I was doing things worse than him. Yeah, he was maybe doing a little bit of coke and drinking, maybe beat up his wife a little bit. Right? I heard about all this during the trial because, the guy's passed away, but they still bring out his whole rap sheet. And we were trying to make him look bad. How fucked up is that? Right? But that's what attorneys do, right? And I was trying to get off from getting life in prison. And I'm actually glad I got life because I would have been fucked up that I wouldn't have had that realization that a life for a life in a way. Like, get your shit right. Right? And yeah, maybe he beat up his wife a little bit. Maybe he did a little bit of coke. Maybe he drank every day. So what? But none of that merits somebody getting killed. None of that gives me authority to take his life. Because just like my dad, he has an opportunity to change his life too. Just like me. And I took that shit from him. So I had to really sit back and fucking think about that shit. Like way even before I decided that I wanted to come back. So I mean, not to divert too much from that question, but But to me, that's what that's what got me to that point. And I share a little bit about the way I look at it now. And again, I'm careful because of victims, because there is a son and a daughter out there, and a widow and a sister that I remember them. I remember them from the trial. I remember the brother. I remember some of his friends. And I remember like being right there and like being so fucking disconnected. Like I had no feelings for them. Like for some reason I didn't like them. You know what I mean? How fucking immature and fucking, you know, numb are you to see the family of someone that you took them from them, and you look at them and you fucking smirk at them? You get what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of shit that I would do to protect myself from feeling the reality of what the fuck was going on. And really, it took me that long for me to be like, you know what? I think that's not good. and start to face that. So, yeah.
And how long did it take for you to stop blaming the victim for what transpired that night?
At least 15 years. 15 to 17 years. Because even when I started to stop using drugs, I didn't connect those dots yet. I didn't fully take responsibility. Like that. Like, it's something that we learn. And I mean, a lot of your viewers, they'll hear it from guys because I hear it because I've watched your podcast before. And they're like, there's a simple question that's asked. They're like, have you committed your crime with a knife, or you committed your crime with a gun or with a baseball bat? They're gonna ask you a simple question: why'd you have that baseball bat? And the worst answer is when you don't say, I had it to use it. You fuck up if you say, well, I had it because I was in a gang and, you know, I had to fucking protect myself, or I had it because they had just broken my house. They're like, oh yeah, this fool's not taking responsibility. If you have a weapon, you have it to use it. Because if you're really on the streets and you're really about something, you pull a gun on me, I'm gonna fucking shoot you. If I'm in the game too, you have it to use it. If not, why do you have it? So it took me a long time to be like, oh, you know what? I had the gun to use it. Before I made my mind up that I was gonna shoot him, or before I dared to pull the trigger, when I woke up in the morning and I put that gun in my pocket, I put it on there knowing that I'm gonna shoot somebody. And that's the real. If not, why do you have it? It's a simple question. If that makes sense.
And that day that when you woke up, did you already have that in your mind? Like, if somebody crosses me today, I'm gonna let them have it.
Yeah, I think I was like at a week, from my friend losing his life to a couple of things that were going on in my life at the time, in my drug stuff or whatever it is that I was doing, that had me at that point. That I was very much on edge. That I was like, man, I had this little altercation at a 7-Eleven, and the guy hit like the rearview mirror, like going through the street, you know, in the middle of the night. And we fucking jumped out of the car, fucking, you know, and the dude was like, it was just some dude that had one of those cars that have like all these clocks on it, these Fast and the Furious. I always go like, what time is it? Yeah, right? Yeah. No, I like them too, they're nice, but you know, but I would always say like, oh man, what time is it? And he hit the fucking rearview mirror, and we fucking jumped out. And I know that dude looked in the rearview mirror because he's seen us. And right when he seen us, he fucking punched it. He's like, fuck this shit. But I mean, that's the shit that was going on, because that's the spiral I was in. That's why I say that day I was like this runaway train. And unfortunately, this man was the one that stood there.
So possibly you could have killed the other guy instead, but yeah. he was smart enough to
yeah. And I have no more bullets. Thank God I didn't have no more bullets, because I probably would have ran to that car. Yeah. I mean, it's just you know, it's just me being honest about that mindset and being disconnected. Because if you feel undervalued, then how do you value other people? That's why they always say, like, you can't be good to others unless you're good to yourself. I wasn't being good to myself, so I wasn't being good to anybody else, in an extreme level. And that's the outcome, or the result of not getting the answers that I wanted, and also not knowing what to ask. You know, I didn't have a voice. I like to say this thing that's sad, actually, that it says that I was in a family, but I didn't feel part of it. And that was all me. You know, I don't say it no more, but there was a time when I was younger when I would say, fuck, if I'm adopted, if they tell me right now that I was adopted, I swear to God, I'll fucking streak it on the street. I'll fucking run like a crazy man happy, because you know what? Nothing that you were saying, I felt it anymore. because I didn't. But it wasn't just my family; it was everything. And I think, and to answer your question, that's what took me to culminate in taking his life. Was that like no one came to be like, hey, come on, man, what the fuck? They didn't. Either I was that good with words or some shit, but I seemed to have fucking made myself believe that what I was doing was good, and it was all bad. I mean, yeah.
So, and then also a moment ago, you had mentioned, you know, you would look over to the family, you would smirk at them, and I've seen that a lot. It's a common theme, I think, when perpetrators of certain crimes, you know, they go to court and the victim family shows up and they either blowing kisses at them, smiling, winking, and things of that nature. When you were doing that, like, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't blow. Well, yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah, well, whatever. I believe it was. I was trying to degrade not only his life, but his significance as well. Because if I alienated that and like threw dirt on it, then that would protect me further from understanding the life that I had took. And yeah, I mean, it was tainting him and the love for him to protect me more about not feeling about my own stuff. And yeah, that's why I believe I did it.
So your case, you took it to trial, right? And obviously you got found guilty. What was your thought? What was running through your mind when the jury or the judge read off that guilty verdict and they gave you your sentence?
Man, I mean, they took, I think, almost 2 days, which I thought was a good thing. And they had an option of finding me guilty of manslaughter, because I had a pretty good lawyer, even though it was a hard, that was a hard case to fight. I was there. They had the gun. They had everything. But they had a chance of giving me either 12 years, 11 years, one for the gun, or 15 to life for second-degree murder or first-degree murder. And when the jury came back, they gave me second-degree murder, and then they gave me 20 years for the gun on top of it, because it was this new law, 10, 20, 25 to life for discharging a firearm or carrying a firearm in the commission of a crime. And then I picked up a bunch of other time in prison, and I picked up other cases in prison. But I remember when they found me guilty, my lawyer was like quick to tell me, oh, we're going to put a motion in. They're going to drop it to manslaughter. So I wasn't really feeling it. I was like, whatever, like, I don't care. Like, the judge is the man. Like, my lawyer had put in my head, like, the judge is the man. We'll take care of it. And I was like, okay, well, we'll take care of it. Again, that mindset. I'm going to get my way. I'm good. I'm smart enough. Fuck these fools. Whatever. When I came back a month later for sentencing, and the judge is like, he goes, oh, no, I read the motion. I considered it, but I'm denying it. And I'm gonna go ahead and sentence you. And then he said, he told one of the family members, which was a sister, I forget her name. She got up and she started talking about her brother, and I tuned her out. And the reason this is important to the story is I tuned her out because 15 years later I read her statement, and that was another reason I changed. So she made her victim impact statement, talked about her brother that I read 15 years later. Being present trip. And then the judge said, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and sentence you. You have anything to say? No. So he gave me life. He gave me 35 to life. And then I went into the bailiff was this the bailiff was like a 30-something-year-old woman, black. I remember she had braces and I had braces. So there was something like she was always cool with me, give me an extra juice or whatever. And she was like, do you want to be by yourself? And I was like, no, I'm good. And she was like, you sure? And I was like, I could put you like in one of the attorney rooms by yourself for a little bit till the bus comes to take you back to the county. And I was like, no, you could throw me in the tank. So she took me in the elevator, because I'm in Norwalk Court. I'm on the 3rd floor, I believe. And I go down the elevator. I come out on the bottom floor. And it seems like I ran into everybody because everybody knew I was getting sentenced, right? And they're like, hey, what's up? ¿Qué onda? Like, and I was like, oh no, valió verga, right? Like, it's a wrap. And then I went in the tank, and when you go into this tank, there's like 2 phones to your left, and then it's the big tank, right? And everybody's there, and I thought everybody was looking at me. So I came in there like with my fucking hamburger Whopper, my fucking Whopper bread with the bologna in it, and the juices, and I put them to the side. And then some fool came up to me, and he's like, hey, ¿qué onda, güey? And I was like, what's up? He goes, hey, valió verga. I was like, yeah. He goes, órale. And he kind of like walked away from me. And I remember I looked up at this little light, like this little fucked up ass light that's all written on it, like tagged on. And I looked at it, and straight up, when I looked down at the phone, I was in a call. But I got the phone, and I looked towards the door so they wouldn't look at me. And I cheered up, fool. But I wasn't thinking about the time. I remember my mom crying. Because my mom was asking my uncle, ¿qué dijo? Because my mom doesn't know English. So she goes, ¿qué dijo? ¿Qué vida? Like she was saying, it's like in Spanish. And my tío was like, no. Right? And then they walked me out. And I was remembering that shit. And I was like, fuck. And then after that, it took me a few hours to like kind of like put the lump down. And then when I got back to the county, it was like a fucking celebration. Again, how fucking twisted, right? It was like we had Pruno, bro. We got drunk. I was on the phone all night talking to my cousin Elizabeth. Not all night, but we were talking, and she was like crying, and I would cry, and then my 3 cellmates, because I was on a 4-man cell, like they were facing life too, and they were like drinking, and it was like we're all kind of going on the same. We'll all run into each other in prison later on, and it was just the beginning of this other life, and I think that was the hardest part of it, was like right after. And I hadn't even thought about it like that, but it's true.
Man, that's I could tell you, I've been in one of those tanks before when somebody's gotten sentenced to life, and it's quiet. It's like it's eerily quiet, and just hearing hearing somebody getting sentenced to life, it affects you some way. I mean, even though if it's not you being sentenced, it does something to you. Just hearing that, I can't explain it. You would have to be there. Yeah. I mean, obviously you've been in that situation, so Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm pretty sure it took you a long time to actually take it in that you were actually being sentenced to.
Yeah, and I want to share the one of the things, and I apologize, is that the reason I say that I tuned the sister out was that the victim impact statement is in my transcripts. So all they do is like erase the name, of the person speaking, and because always protect the victims. That's true, and that's something that I would never, like if I were to see them, I don't think I would recognize anybody, but if I would, by some crazy way, like I would never say anything. Like that's not on me to say. The victim wants to come and spit at me or slap me or scream at me or whatever, like I'll take it, right? And if I'm honored or blessed enough to even be able to say what I've realized, bro, that's a gift, right? And so I was reading this victim impact statement, and she said in the first couple of lines, she goes, my brother, and I won't say his name, here, is that he goes, he leaves behind his 9-year-old son and his like 13, 14-year-old daughter, and he was only 32, right? And I straight up, I'm in my bunk in the cell, and I'm reading it, and I got a stack like this. I had like over 1,000 sheets of paper, and I actually scratched the paper where it said 9 years old, 32. I scratched it. I actually thought the ink was fucked up because they had been there so long, like in a stack. Imagine 15 so years. I always had them like in a stack, tied up. Wherever I would get moved to, your transcripts are the only thing that they can't fuck with you, is your legal work. All your food and all your other shit, that could potentially come up missing, or you can't take it with you, but your legal work, that goes with you everywhere. So I actually scratched it. You know why? Because my dad was 32 and I was 9. And you know what? When I read that shit, I fucking got up and I looked out the cell window, and you know what I felt? I said, damn, is that fool's son right here? Not because I was afraid of him. That didn't even cross my mind. It was the fucking guilt that I was like, son of a fucking bitch. does that mean that now I'm responsible of some motherfucker? Is he right here because of me? Because he's the same age. And that fucking, that shit, it just fucking fucked me up, bro. And I know not only Bobby and his inspiring story of strength and shit, but reading that, that was a snowball effect to be like, okay, hold up, let me see the truth. And for some reason, I wanted to go from back to front. I didn't want to read my trial from the beginning. I want to read it from the back. I don't know why. And the first page was that one.
The statement.
The statement. That was the first fucking page. You know what I mean? And I didn't read it anymore after that. Later on I did. But right there it was like, hold up, it's a lot right here. Like, what the fuck do I gotta do? Okay, what about if I do run into that son? Of course I'm gonna tell him, hey fool, like, what the fuck? Like, sorry's not enough. I know that. Because sorry's not enough for my dad. It's a different circumstance, but you're still missing that man like I'm missing that man. That's the first man you loved. And I'm the one responsible. I'm the one that shot him. Like, what the fuck am I gonna say? That shit was just fucking, it was a trip. It was like those answers that I never got from my dad, right? Then now I felt that I had to have them. And that shit right there, like, put a fire in my ass to be like, bro, I gotta get to work. I gotta fucking do something. Like, I can't do this shit. This shit's not enough for that. This shit could be enough for that shit, but not for this shit. And that's what got me to fucking really, really put my fucking feet down and do something to get the fuck out of there, or get out of that situation even. Maybe not even prison at the time, but just a situation. But yeah, I wanted to share that.
And what was your first step, to get yourself out of the situation? Did you like have a plan? Did you write it down? Like, hey, like, these are the steps I'm gonna do to get myself, from this place to another place, or a better state of mind? Just
asking a lot of questions, straight up. Just asking. I mean, because out here you have YouTube University, and there you just got a bunch of dudes, right? You got a bunch of people. Just ask questions. Just whoever you think is doing better, or you think is looking like looks a little different, instead of you being like, oh, he's different, or it's like you say, oh, the one that's not down, maybe he's the one that has that answer, and you go and you just ask them, hey, bro, how'd you get into this program, or what you learn from here, or how'd you get into college, or how'd you do that, or why are you doing it? And they tell you, and you're like, oh, I can do that. And then if you really believe you're that smart, you're like, dude, if he can fucking do it, it's like a mind fuck to yourself. It's like, you know what I mean? Then it wouldn't be right to think I'm wiser than you if I'm not strong enough to do that what you're doing. And I know it's good. It's just different. It's like standing out for other reasons. And yeah, I mean, you took me onto this fucking little.
and what do you remember? Which is the first program you were able to get accepted to or participated in?
Inside Out Writers, and the one that I shared with Johnny Kovac. Yeah, him and teaching me, getting through to me, to help me discover my voice was like that. Bobby, Johnny, I mean, that's like the base. Father Mike as well. Such an incredible light in my life. Those people were the ones that they grabbed onto me, and they just held me accountable and allowed me to find my voice, and to help me develop that writing voice as well. So yeah, that was the first one.
And on a scale from 1 to 10, how instrumental were they for your change?
1,000.
And do you think without you coming in contact with them, would you have made that change?
I believe I would have. Of course I would have, because I was looking. But they were the first ones, and at that time I was so hungry for something different that I gravitated towards them, and I got their attention. And I was one of those guys that if there was a group of like 50, and if I can talk to Bobby about myself in the corner, I didn't understand, right? Because he did that to me. He did that for me one time to like help me get ready for board. And I got denied that time too. But it was because I wasn't ready. But he didn't tell me that. And I'm telling you, there was maybe more than 50 people in a group. It was a big retreat. And a meditation retreat. And I was so persistent that this fool took like an hour of that retreat. We put 2 chairs in the corner, and he fucking sat with me, and he like talked to me, and he was like telling me how to do it. And now when I look back, I'm like, damn, how special was I that I took this fool? Because everybody wanted to hear about me. Because he was one of us. You know, he was one of the first guys that got out of having life as a juvenile offender. Like, he was really like a light of hope for all of us that wanted to get out. And I had this fool all for myself for a little while. And now I realize, like, man, there was such an investment put on me to do good that even though I feel a little bad, you know, for fucking hogging them up, but I mean, now I look at that's the investment that I see as whenever I feel that I'm like, oh man, you know, this, and I see, I'm saying, man, hold up, like I was looking for answers fucking in the worst place. Like, dude, I'll pick up my phone. You know, if I feel bad about it, I'll just look some shit up or whatever. Like, what the fuck am I tripping about? And because I remember those little things. And people do care. That's one thing, too. I thought they didn't, and they do. People give a fuck. But if you don't fucking ask, you're not going to get it.
All right, so what are you doing now?
What do I do now? But we're talking about that, too. So now what I do in production, so I started as a PA, went on to the art department, got some gigs as art director, some gigs as production designer, kind of working my way up. Now I got a big shot with a couple of good friends that I met that are actually from this area as well, that work for a production company to be the executive producers and get me on as a producer for a documentary that should be coming up soon about a lowrider legend, one of the founders of like a huge car club. So yeah, no, we plan on like taking him around the world, filming him. It's really a story of perseverance, of good spirit. You know, did the whole thing, the whole tenure, going to prison, drug dealer, was in a gang, now has a nonprofit. You know, literally in the same park where he used to gangbang and sell dope. Like, he has little league baseball, basketball, and he gives back to the community. So that's very inspirational to me. And it hit to be able to. That's the purpose of what I'm doing, is to share good story and uplifting stories and stories of perseverance and that's why I believe I'm in the industry, to get to a point where I can determine what stories I produce and being able to make a difference that way, and honoring the life that I took first and foremost, and the people that I hurt in this very area, which is the reason that I wanted to bring you guys here, is because that's the point. Like, if I hurt this very street, my job is that in some way come and plant something that gives shade to others from the shit that I cut down. Like, I could never take away of a kid playing in the driveway of my house or the place where my mom used to live and remembering that there was a man that was dead on that driveway. I'll forever, everybody will always remember that. Even the property value goes down, right? Because there was crimes there. So if you look at all the ripple effect, in a sense of what that crime caused, then it's only my, I would have to retrace those footsteps and make and plant something that's positive to in some way give back to that shit I fucked up. So I want to do it in this level. There's other people that do it, like we spoke, through a nonprofit. There are counselors, there's drug and alcohol counselors, there's guys that go back into prison like Bobby does. I never got a chance to actually do that for a living, but I've been back. I do it, through my nonprofit, the nonprofit that I have, but that I want to share stories on a big screen that could be translated in all kinds of different languages, and that are good, heartfelt stories that could help just one person. I just want to help one person. And if I could help save one life after taking a life, then I feel that I can some way make that difference. And when I leave, at least I won't be defined as just the guy that was convicted of murder. At least I'll have like another page. But that page is there. It's a real thing. And people are always gonna have to read through it. But I want to have something on the next pages You know, to show a little bit of light, to at least be like, you know what, at least this motherfucker didn't forget about us. Fuck him anyways. But at least, you know what, he put that right there. You know, fuck it, you know, for my kids. Maybe my kids will walk around and not be ashamed of some shit that I fucking did. You know, I want them to be proud of what the fuck I am. You know, my mother, you know, my neighbors. You know, there's neighbors that still live there that were there that night. And when they see me, they give me a hug, bro. And you know what I say? I say, I'm sorry. Like, I can't help it. Be like, man, that's fucked up. You know, I did shake you up at 2:30 in the morning that day in March in '98. And I scared the shit out of you. And I'm sorry. You know, I did that. But they still hug me, bro. They still fucking, they're happy to see me. Or at least I believe they are. I do. I'm just fucking around. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's my mission as far as what I'm doing right now.
You know, and I'm glad you mentioned that right now about you know, your neighbors, you know, coming up to you and hugging you. But it just goes to show, you know, when you're out there committing crimes, it's just not you and the victim. There's the family members that were affected, the neighbors. I mean, kids. I mean, you don't know how this crime affected the whole neighborhood or the whole community as a whole. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think we'll ever know like the real effects of those type of crimes or any type of crime. You know how it affects everybody. You know, it affects everybody differently. But I want to go ahead and touch on something that you just mentioned a few moments ago about a nonprofit. So do you have a nonprofit? And if you do you mind sharing the name of it and what the mission statement of your nonprofit is?
Well, it's called Unlock the Arts. And it's based out of Portland, Oregon. How it is that we ended up in Portland, Oregon is a great story in itself, because now that I've been to YOPs, to YAs in Oregon, and I'm soon to go into adult prisons up there as well, that there's more of a need over there. You know, there's a need everywhere. But in California, it's saturated. I know there's a lot of good people that go in there and share the light. But in Oregon, working with these youngsters through Unlock the Arts, is it allows me, it's like this, I get to see myself as a 16, as a 17, as an 18-year-old, right? Because they're up there till they're 25. So I'm sitting with them in class and we're writing something and they're sharing and I can see myself. And it's hard. Trust me, when you go in there and you're going to see, because they're kids, bro. Like, they're kids. I don't give a fuck how much facial hair you got. You're a fucking kid. You know, you really don't know what the fuck life's all about. So, you know, I've helped through Johnny Kovac, the co-founder and the director, which was my teacher in prison. So not only where he's the first guy that reached me, but he's the one that invited me to help him found this nonprofit and go into prisons and continue the mission. And we like to say that we just like to share the light. And the light shines brighter in a darker place. So, you know, if you're the light in there, like, trust me, people are going to see you. It's going to be a little nerve-wracking. And I believe the mission statement's in the name. It's to unlock the art that's in there. There's many artists. We're all artists. You know, we're all painting the canvas of our life. And if you could find a way to do it now, today, when you're there in the class, that you never know where those words can take you or what those words can do for others, and to empower the hearts of those young men and older men, any men or women, to use those words wisely and to help mend the stuff that they've done to themselves and others, is really what it's all about. Like, to me, that's what Unlock the Art's all about. Because if Johnny Kovac, which is the director of this, and he's the one that, you know, we answer to each other, but I'm so honored that he took me on to be like, man, have you seen me in that class in prison, and to get out, and this guy's never been to prison, you know, he hasn't done anything. He's just someone that reaches us, and now I work with them to reach other people. Then, dude, it's like God sent. You know, it's like the universe is telling me, like, okay, you told me you want to get out because you want to help other people, then ahí está. I'm gonna give you the shot. Go ahead, because it's not easy to start that. You know, for my name to be attached to it, because I just got out. You know what I mean? And whatever it takes, you know, to get a 501c number and all that. Like, I was naive to it. I didn't understand that. You know, I didn't understand about renting and all that shit. So for him to take me on, and the trust factor, and for me to be with him in this journey and to help other people is exactly what I asked for him. So I can't say, oh no, like this looks like a lot of work, because it is, but it's gratifying work. It's just giving back to what was given to me. So that's what to me Unlock the Arts is. And I believe all nonprofits have that in there. And we do it through writing, through storytelling. And I'm actually in charge in the nonprofit of everything that has to do with filming. So I'm very close to being able to make a short documentary. And I'm being chatted now, but I'm excited about this because we're gonna do a workshop. I'm gonna start the workshop in Portland, Oregon. And if anybody wants to come and help out with this, because we need the more help the merrier, is I want to do a screenwriting, not contest, but workshop, and pick all the stories of these youngsters that committed these murders and these gruesome crimes. They're gonna write the screenplay, and I'm gonna go shoot it in the very same neighborhood that they committed their crime, to give light to what happened. I'm gonna retrace their footsteps to unlock their art, right? To bring their art out, but in a message of hope, in a message of redemption. And then do workshops in Portland, Oregon with returning residents and with nonprofits, and do screenings where they're gonna fundraise to help the guys inside. So again, it's the power of your words. If you can write it and it's good enough, and I'm gonna help them, and they're gonna learn it because I learned it in there, and I know they could learn it. And everybody's smarter than me, trust me. And so if they're gonna learn it and they write it and we film it, not only will they have something to come back on, it's the beginning of their career. They could live off of this. And what better than to live off your own heart? That's the best thing, to live off what's in your heart. And that's what I want them to do. I want them to think outside the box. That's it.
And right now, you asked if anybody's willing to help you, or to come out and help. If they want to get a hold of you, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, they can get at me through the Unlock the Arts website, unlockthearts.org, or on Instagram I have ignacho.medina, and yeah, they could hit me up. They can whatever it is that they think they can help with when it comes to this particular sector, community, you could say. And everything, when it comes to anybody from foster care, homelessness, or incarceration, if your system impacted, I believe that your stories can move the needle. If you empower yourself, it's like saying it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. So if you're already someone that understands that what happened to you was for you, then, and if you're not, we can still help you get there. And if you want to get into this, you want to help out, you got stories to share, or someone inside that's writing and would want to film something, I would really love to get in contact with you and see if we can work something out and get it done and share the message. I mean, that's the most important thing. A lot of people get caught up in, I want to do this, but maybe I don't have the money, or I want to do this, but I don't know the people. Well, come on. You know what I mean? Trust me, if I can do it, anybody could do it.
So pretty much, as long as they got some free time on their hands and they're willing to learn or come and help out, that's how pretty much you need from them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then also, last question I want to ask you. I mean, for this part here, one thing. Can you think about one thing that you miss from prison? Do you ever miss prison? And if you do, what that one thing is? I know it's kind of crazy, like who you just did 23 years, so who's gonna miss anything from prison?
Yeah, it's a good question. It actually made me like, you know what? I miss the guys, man. I just miss them, cause there's some good dudes in there. Like there's dudes it's not even about innocent or guilt. It's just the innocence of who they are. Like I miss that. When and again, excuse my language. When a motherfucker gets up in group, or anywhere, you could be walking on the yard, and someone can tell you, like, I've been sexually abused, or there's a guy, like, I remember this dude, like, and when he watches this, like, he shared one day he got up in a group and he said that he remembers his dad's sweat that would fall on his face when his dad would beat him, bro, as a kid. And then he would throw him in the trunk of a car. And sometimes it was all night. You know, for someone to get up and to just share that, and I'm sitting right there, first of all, I would say, what the fuck am I bitching about? You know what I mean? All I got is some daddy issues. Like, my dad never did that to me. Like, you know what I mean? They never, like, you know, that stuff didn't happen to me. I started to be like, man, like this is a good dude. It's not even about helping him. He helped me by just saying that shit. And I missed that. Because out here, no one's going to sit here with you for an hour or two and talk about what they're feeling about. Especially men. They're not. They're going to think you're fucking crazy. Right? They're not. You got to pay somebody to go sit somewhere. They're not, bro. And I miss that. I miss those guys. I miss the innocence of who they are and how they look at their life. And they're so fucking enthusiastic about it. And they're still right there. And I have some really good friends, man, that, like, when I talk to them on the phone, it's like, you know that. I mean, when we get the phone calls, it's like I transform myself. Like, I'm like, man, like, when I hang up, I'm like, fuck. And I look down at my plate sometimes, and I'm like, damn. Like, I'm not eating a soup. You know, I'm not eating, you know, this dirty-ass fucking water that's full of sand and shit sometimes in a fucked up prison that tastes like shit because I have to fucking boil it. Like, I'm over here drinking bottled water and eating some bomb shit, and it kind of makes you feel like, you know, it makes you feel fucked up sometimes. Like, why am I fucking worthy of this and he's not? When he's a good one. You know, there's so many good ones right there. You know, just, you know, and it's fucked up.
Yeah. Man, I mean, man, well, hey, Nacho, I really appreciate, you know, you taking time out of your day and spending it with us out here. Or me, actually, because I'm the one that came out. But
yeah.
But I think it's important, you know, to share stories like yours. You know, I know a lot of people, a lot of youth, you know, they got caught up in the street life, you know, doing negative things or making wrong decisions or doing wrong decisions. And I want, you know, the audience, everybody watching out there, if anything to take from this whole experience is that everybody's redeemable. There's good in somebody as long as, you know, we take the time, you know, to show that or invest in you guys, showing that we care. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, we discard you and expect the prison system just to fix you or not to be out of sight and not worry about you. I think that's the worst way we could handle this whole situation. I think the CDCR is on the right path with the programs they're offering, because it is giving a lot of people hope to change and do some open up new doors and give them hope, pretty much. And with that, you know, I want to go ahead and thank you. And like I say around here, life's like a candle. Once you blow it, it's lights out.
Thank you, brother.
Gracias.
Appreciate it. Hey, there was a guy on Western and like the 101, and I'm turning on the corner. That was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, fucking tagging the wall, and I was, and I put my window down. I'm like, no, mijo, no, mijo, because he was like a 15-year-old. No, mijo, no ahí, en un libro, mijo. And that fool turns around. And he just shook his head like, what the fuck? No, amigo, ahí no. Use the book. I was like, right on the book. Yeah, he was